Hello everyone and welcome to our first podcast where we talk about various things, whether it be sport, movies or anything else. Today we're talking about the most underrated players in the NBA on every single team. So hope you enjoy the discussion. Let us know in the comments what you think and what you think are the most underrated players in the league, and hope you enjoy.
Let's get into it. Atlanta Hawks. The player I've chosen as the most underrated is John Collins. He's averaging 21.5 points a game and 10 rebounds. So a 20 and 10 guy definitely has the ability to be an all-star, I believe, in the future. And as well as that, he's only on $2 million a year, believe it or not. He's definitely a dude that I think could be earning 15 plus mil. Obviously, he's probably only on his rookie contract, but he's signed a 4-year deal on his rookie contract, so he's not going to get a new contract until the 2022-2023 season. So I think the Hawks have a lot of good talent there for the amount of money that he's on.
Well, I picked Skal Labissiere, so more of a role player on the team. He was an ex-Blazer, which is good in my book, and I was very sad to see him go. He's only averaging around 6 points, 5 boards a game, with about 1.5 assists. But he's also he doesn't play many minutes. He's that sort of role player. I just think he's really solid.
He's pretty young as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's 24.
He's definitely got potential. I like him as well. I think he's a good player. So for the Boston Celtics, I have chosen Daniel Theis. He's the starting center, I'm pretty sure, on the Celtics. I think Cantor comes off the bench now. He's only 6'8", so he's obviously very undersized for a center. But I think he gets the job done more often than not. Looking at his stats for this year, he averages only just under 9.5 points over 6.5 rebounds. But I think he's really solid as a player. I like the games I've seen the Celtics play. I feel like he always does pretty well. I feel like he plays better than what his stats show, I think. I mean, looking at his contract, he's on $5 million, so I think, he could be earning maybe a little bit more, but I think, that's a pretty solid contract for his stats anyway. But I definitely think they're getting more out of him than what his stats show, for sure.
Yeah, he's sort of one of those impact players where he brings, he may not bring massive stats every night, but he brings the energy.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Every single game. So I went a little bit different. I went with Jaylen Brown.
Interesting. Okay.
I think he's also, in general, not just specifically the Celtics, but in general, a very underrated player.
Yeah.
So this year, I feel like he's really started to come into the form that he could be at. I mean, this year he had a 7.5 point increase from the season before, so up from 13 points per game to 20.5 points per game. He's also getting 6.5 rebounds, a couple of assists every single game. I just feel like he's a very solid player, and it's good to see that he's finally actually shaping up into the player that he can actually be.
Yeah, he's a good defensive player too, as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
That would have been probably my other pick if I didn't pick Theis. I sort of just went a bit of an obscure player rather than, one that's more.
I mean, this year Jaylen Brown's on $6.5 million.
Yeah.
So he just signed his new deal, but this year that's pocket change for a player like that.
Oh, definitely. Brooklyn Nets, I think we'll have for the first time on this list the same player. I have selected Caris LeVert.
Yeah.
This guy's an all-star in the making. I think as well, with Kyrie and Durant going to be on the same team as him next season, I worry for him in terms of his production because he's not going to get that many shots.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to take a big hit.
Yeah, a very ball-dominant guard in Kyrie. He's going to take 15 to 20 shots a game. KD's obviously should be the first option, so he's going to be taking 20 shots a game. Caris LeVert, he'd be lucky to get 10 shots a game, I think, with other guys like Joe Harris, Spencer Dinwiddie, Yeah, they've got a good team. DeAndre Jordan even at center. Not he's going to take that many shots, but he's going to take some shots for them. I think he's potentially going to leave the Brooklyn Nets.
Oh, it'll be interesting because he obviously just signed his new deal, so you'd have to trade out of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like for his growth, I feel like that would be a very smart decision. I mean, you've secured your money, which is a really important thing. I'd love to see him on his own team to see what he could do, because he sort of had that for a little bit of this year when Kyrie was injured. I mean, he dropped like 55 points, whatever it was. Yeah, he's insane.
Yeah, I mean, he's averaging 17 points a game, almost 18, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. Very solid numbers for a second to third option player, and he's going to become more of a fourth option player. $2 million a year he's on at the moment. $2 million.
Yep.
And he's only going to be on $16 million next year. I think he's worth more than that, in my opinion. But obviously with Kyrie and KD there, hard to give them more money. But
at the end of his contract, he'll be 29, which is in your prime, and he'll be an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah.
That could be... If he doesn't leave before then, I feel like he could definitely leave after that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Nets are going to be a good team, I think, with KD. Any team that KD's on is going to be a good team. They're going to be a chance to win it all. So it depends what he values. Does he value being a star player, or does he value winning championships? I'd value winning championships, but it depends. I mean, he's still on a good amount of money, obviously. Even right now, $2 million, I would take it. But he's definitely on a good team. It will be very interesting to see what happens to him. For the Charlotte Hornets, next up is the Charlotte Hornets. Charlotte Hornets, what a team! I've selected Malik Monk as my pick. He was the 11th pick back in 2017. He's gone from averaging 6 points to 9 points to just over 10 points this year, so he is steadily improving. Obviously, being the 11th pick, he can be a decent player in the future. Yeah, look, I mean, it's a tough team to pick from. He's he's on $4 million a year, so cheap contract. But yeah, definitely a tough team to choose an underrated player for.
Yeah, because no one's really rated. So.
Yeah.
Well, I pretty much chose... I didn't choose the same player. I chose a very similar player. I chose Miles Bridges, who essentially does the exact same thing. I mean, from last year to this year, he went from 7.5 points a game to 13, so he's definitely showed some improvement. But yeah, he's on a cheap contract as well, just under $4 million. Just a really solid role player.
Yeah. If there's anyone else I would choose from, it'd probably be Devontae Graham. He's only on $1.4 million a year, and he's definitely their best player. Not that that's too hard to do, but everyone, I feel like people know him though. Like, he's not underrated in terms of how well known he is. He's just underrated. His contract is very, very underrated. Yeah, that's probably the only other player I'd pick from that list if I didn't choose Malik Monk. But yeah, tough team. The Chicago Bulls. I think this might be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but as a Wizards fan, I have selected Otto Porter Jr. He's one of my favourite players in the league, Otto Porter, and I think his issue as of late has been his durability. He's been injured a fair bit lately, and I think people would say he's overpaid, in which I don't disagree. He's overpaid, but that was given to him by a really bad GM in Ernie Grunfeld, who used to be the general manager of the Washington Wizards, who thankfully is gone now. But yeah, he was very much overpaid, and No, I think he still has the potential to be one of the best shooters in the league. If not, I think he pretty much is one of the best shooters in the league, in my opinion. This year's kind of hard to say why he's one of the best shooters. He's only played 14 games this year. But if we look back to 2017, 2016, he was averaging 13 points and just under 15 points for those years. His 3-point percentage was in 2016-17 season 43%. From memory, he ranked top 5 in the league in 3-point shooting. He was a deadeye, like mid-range 3-point. You just felt confident when he had the ball in his hand. 2017-2018, 44% from 3. I know he left us to the Bulls for about a quarter of that season. Yeah, I think he has a lot of potential in this league to be still a very good player.
I mean, he's still young. I mean, he's only 26. That's not old by any stretch of the imagination. I also chose Otto. The way I justify it, every time I see him play, whether it was back in Washington or the odd occasion I see a Bulls game, I might be watching my team play the Bulls. He's just still, when he's playing, he's still extremely solid. And he's just a shooter that you'd really like to have on your team.
And he's improving defensively as well as a player.
Yeah.
Like, I remember back when he came into the league, he was a 3rd pick and he was not good. He was very bad as a player. I remember he had like the goggles on, he just looked very, very strange of a pick. But I think he definitely has proven himself as of late, for sure. Next, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I have selected Tristan Thompson.
Okay.
There's been a lot of talk about this guy, obviously, about just not being a good player. I think he's underrated in his rebounding. He averages 10 rebounds a game, but offensive rebounds he does really well at. And I think you got to remember, he's only 6'9". He's not like a 7-foot center. I think he's just on a bad team, but I think he could do well as a role player at another team that is, just not as bad as Cleveland. Like, Cleveland just don't have the ability to use him well there.
I agree.
Yeah, that's pretty much his rebounding, I think, is what's most underrated about him.
And he's been a solid rebounder pretty much since he came to the league.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that holds him back as well is just he doesn't look like he's improved in any other area of his game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Like, he still really can't. He's got a decent touch around the basket. That's about all. But a very solid pick. Mine was kind of, I struggled with the Cavs because similar to the Hornets, they don't really have anyone who's that good. I went with Dante Exum. I didn't even know he was on their roster. Now, the biggest thing for Dante is his health. He gets injured so often, it's ridiculous. But I feel like when he's healthy, he's actually a very solid player, and he shows little glimpses of how good he actually is. Like, I remember for like a 10-15 game span back in Utah, I think it was either last year or the year before, he was like playing so well. He was averaging like 15 points a game, just putting up really good stats. So I've put him there because when he's healthy, he's such a good player. But yeah,
I mean, was a 5th pick, wasn't he, back in 2015?
I believe so. Yeah.
So he's definitely got what it takes to be a good player, and he has shown glimpses for sure. For the Detroit Pistons, I have selected Christian Wood. He's one of my favourite players at the moment in the league. He is averaging 13 points a game, 6 rebounds, 1 assist. This year has definitely been a breakout year for him. I think Andre Drummond leaving the Pistons. I think that's really helped him rebounding wise. Looking at last year, he was actually averaging almost 17 points a game and almost 8 rebounds. So he's actually kind of lost a bit of ability for whatever reason. But I think he's a really, really good player. I mean, I've seen him, I think he had a 20-20 game this year, or definitely a few close to. I think he's a great player.
Yeah.
I really love him as a player. I would love to have him on my team. He's only on 1.6 mil a year, and he's going to get a fair payday, I think, once this season's over. So
I have selected Derrick Rose. Obviously, once a MVP of the league, youngest player to do it. Doncic looks like he was challenging that, but I don't know about that anymore. I mean, Derrick Rose is an interesting spot because obviously, as a player, he is so loved by fans. But I just look at how Detroit uses him. I mean, he doesn't even start. Reggie Jackson starts, which is just should not be happening. I mean, he averages 18 points off the bench with 6 assists. Still going to get you 2.5 rebounds a game as well. And for 7 mil, that is a absolute steal. Similar to Dante, obviously, the biggest flaw of him is his injuries, but over the last couple of years, he has definitely been more durable than, those couple of years where he just never played because of his injuries.
Yeah. Well, I think Reggie Jackson's actually got traded to the Clippers now, so
did he?
Yeah, so maybe that will help Derek. But again, I think they've also run, when Reggie Jackson's been injured, they've ran Bruce Brown, the starting point guard. So,
who's that?
Big old Bruce taking Derek's minutes for whatever reason. Yeah, Derrick Rose. Everyone loves him. No one hates him. Great player.
Yeah.
Good on you, Derek. Indiana Pacers is the first team that I have 2 different players in which I couldn't determine who was more underrated. The first one I picked was Malcolm Brogdon. I mean, sure, he's a little bit older. He's 27, but he's only played, it's his 4th year in the NBA. But he's just a great player. He's averaging 16 points, just under 5 rebounds, 7 assists, which is much better than his career averages overall. I think people have just forgotten about this guy. I mean, everyone loved him when he was a rookie on Milwaukee, but then as soon as he went to Indiana, it seems like people just forgot who he was. And I think he's improved a lot in the last year or so. Especially without Victor Oladipo being there, I think it's also helped his growth. I think he'll be a really good pairing with Oladipo at the guard spots as well, with Oladipo coming off his injury and getting better and better as well. And the other player I picked was Miles Turner, who I love this guy as a defensive player, and he's getting a lot better as well offensively. Still a lot of growth to go offensively, but he's definitely improving his range 3-point wise. I think he has a lot of potential in this league to be a very solid center.
I agree. Well, I don't have even much more to say. I chose Brogdon as well.
Nice.
You pretty much covered all bases. Very, very player. Was a ridiculously good player for Milwaukee. He's very obviously he's a little bit older, but has played less time. But he looks like he's been playing in the NBA for much longer than he has been.
Yeah.
So very solid player.
The Miami Heat. I chose Goran Dragic as my pick. I don't really like this guy as a player. I don't know, something about him, I just don't enjoy watching him play. But I think he's still putting up pretty good numbers as a player. Averaging 16 points a game, 3 rebounds and 5 assists. And, I mean, how old is he? He's 34 years old, so he's definitely getting on. I didn't even realise he was that old, to be honest. I thought he was going to be like 30 maybe. Yeah, I mean, he's still putting up pretty solid numbers as a player. Shooting 37% from 3, 49% from the field. You know, I mean, he's definitely a very good point guard still in the league. 19 mil a year, probably about right. Yeah, I mean, it's a good pick by Miami to have him there and still performing at a reasonably high level.
Yeah, and as I said, I didn't realize he was 34. I literally thought he was like 30. Okay, well, I have selected Myers Leonard. A very, very solid player. Similar to a lot of the guys that I've selected, not necessarily the biggest stat guy, but he gets the job done. If he's, if you put him on the court and you say to do a specific job, even as simple as that, you put him on to box someone out, even if it's a simple job like that, he's gonna get it done for you. Solid shooter for a 7-foot guy. I remember he had that back and forth with Curry last year in the thing, and then obviously we just suck. And yeah, I mean, he's only on 9 mil as well. I think that's a very good amount for him. I don't think it's too much. I don't think it's, and I mean, shoots almost. Well, this year he's shooting 42% from 3, and last year he shot 45%, and he's
really?
7 foot.
Milwaukee Bucks. I have chosen Brook Lopez as my pick.
Okay.
I know that his stats have obviously decreased a lot since his time in Brooklyn. He was like a really, really good player in Brooklyn, an all-star caliber player, and he's nowhere near the same player he is now. Like, he's a 3-point threat rather than an inside scorer like he was at Brooklyn. But I think for the benefit of the team building around Giannis, I think he's a great player to have at that center spot to shoot threes. Because obviously Giannis's outside game isn't that great. It's obviously improving, but you know, he needs shooters, and they've built a really good team around Giannis to have shooters. You know, guys like Kyle Korver being there. But I mean, from 3, he's shooting 29%.
Really? I feel like he struggled. From what I saw earlier this year, I feel like he struggled a bit this year. But in general,
yeah. I mean, but you look at the last 2 years, he's averaged, he shot 36% and 35%. So I mean, for a 7-footer who didn't used to shoot threes, you got to remember that it's only been the last 3 years he's been able to shoot threes, and he's actually has games where he shoots them with a really high clip. I remember he shot 8 of 10 or something against, I think, the Nuggets last year. I recall watching that game, and that was like crazy. Yeah. He's definitely a threat, and I think he's a good player to build around Giannis. I didn't realize he was shooting as badly as he is right now, but definitely is. He helps the team, even not shooting the best. He definitely helps the team by spraying the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. Just being that a threat on the court. I think that's what Walker's done so well. Is they've just surrounded him with not only scorers but people that can knock down jumpers. You know, Eric Bledsoe can knock down threes that are pretty solid rate. Chris Middleton's a very solid shooter.
Yeah, Korver, Wesley Matthews, plenty of guys. Ilyasova.
They've really smartly built that team around Giannis.
Yeah.
And that's why it would suck the most is if he decided to leave, which I don't think he will.
No, I don't think he will.
the idea. I mean, what's interesting about Giannis though is that you don't actually know at the same time because he doesn't really give anything off as to what he's wants to do.
Yeah, he's a bit like a Kawhi Leonard. You're not really sure what he's thinking.
If he left, I wouldn't be super surprised. But it'd still be a little bit shocking. He's a bit weird.
I think he is.
So I put Pat Connaughton as my as the most underrated player on the Bucks. Yet again, just going very similar to the other guys. Just a really good role player. Put him out there to do a job. He's going to do it really well. A solid defender, and I believe he comes off the bench, and he's a little bit of a spark plug in the sense that he can have. He doesn't necessarily have the body of a dunker, but has like a 45-inch vertical or something.
Yeah.
So he can sort of have a sparking play where he sort of gets everyone off the bench. And he's also on less than $2 million a year. He's on like $1.5 million a year. Absolute steal. So you're not really losing anything for him, but you're gaining a lot from having him on your team.
Then the Knicks now. I have picked Kevin Knox, the second. A second-year player this year. Definitely struggled this year, performance-wise. I liked him a lot in his first year. I still obviously think he has potential. Maybe it's just he's on a bad team. I don't know. They're not playing him right. I don't watch any Knicks games, so I wouldn't be too certain. But I don't think this guy is... I don't think his performance this year is telling of what sort of player he can be in the next couple of years' time. And what draft pick was he? He was the
Pretty high up.
9th pick. So he's definitely been seen to have potential. He's bigger than most young players already, which is good.
Yeah.
Only 20 years old. I think he's got a lot of upside. I think he needs to find a new place, which unfortunately is what's said a lot about players that play for the Knicks. So
yeah. And obviously, in New York, that is not the place to be. It has been shown because two of the biggest free agents just a year ago went to the other side of the bridge. So,
that's true.
So my pick was, you might find this a little bit interesting because he has played for the Washington Wizards. I chose Bobby Portis.
Okay.
So obviously not the best player in the
No.
world. But he's solid. I think he's a very solid player. He's going to give you 10 and 5 a game. I think that's pretty solid. I don't know how many times I want to say solid. Shoots 45% from 3 apparently. He's on 15 mil a year, which is probably a little bit more than I would give him. But overall, just a pretty good player.
Next is Florida's own Orlando Magic. I have picked Markelle Fultz. Obviously,
Okay.
was the number 1 pick back in 2017. I mean, he's obviously got potential based off of that. We know his shooting has been very controversial. He's not a great shooter, but I think this year's improved a lot shooting-wise. In the few games I've seen him, obviously the Wizards and the Magic, they play 4 times a year, so I've seen him in all 4 games they've played. The Magic beat us every time, and this guy popped off every game, and from that, I've seen a lot of improvement in his jump shooting ability. 3-point shooting still not amazing, 25% 3-point shooter, but it's his mid-range shooting that I think has improved a lot. When we look at his free throw percentage, it's gone from 47% his first year, 56% his second year, and this year 72%, which is not great, but it's not terrible like it once was. You expect a big man that can't shoot to shoot 56% or below. And he's gone from averaging 7 points to 8 points to 12 points. So he's steadily improving. I think next year he's got a chance to be a really, really good player that people begin to respect a bit more. Obviously, he had a bit of a controversial start to his career, but I think he's going to be still a really solid player.
I also think he has a really nice touch around the basket. So he definitely has some things going for him, and I think he's also really athletic. He has a very weird thing where when they were drafting him, if I remember correctly, he was a really good shooter, and then I think it was something to do with his shoulder, and then he had fluid in his shoulder, and it's just completely sort of thrown all out of sorts. But I feel like with enough hard work, you can get yourself back and get himself back to that sort of level. Yeah, so I went with DJ Augustine, if that's how you say his name. I didn't realise that he's played 11 years. Didn't realise that. Still only 32, so still not too old. Well, I mean, same age as some other prime players. That pick's mostly based off his performance last year against Toronto in the playoffs. He played really, really well. I mean, he won them a game. The game when he shot, I think he had like 30-something points as well. Just a solid player. He made just over $7 million a year for over 10 points a game, 5 assists a game, 2 boards a game. 2 boards a game for a pretty small guy. I believe he's 6'1". Yeah. He's 5'11", actually.
Oh, 11, really? Oh.
Yeah, so to get yourself a couple of boards a game, it's really good. And like most guys, shoots a pretty solid percentage. It does dip a little bit here and there, but I think still a pretty solid player.
For the Philadelphia 76ers, on this one, I might have gone a little bit biased. I have picked Mike Scott as one of my picks. I actually have 2 picks here, but you picked Mike Scott too. Interesting. I really like this guy. He's never going to be a huge, reliable scorer, but he definitely has the ability to come out and knock down shots really well. When he was in Atlanta before he came to Washington, he was sort of struggling to stay in the NBA. He wasn't he averaged 2 points a game before he got to Washington, and he got to the Wizards. He averaged only 8.8 points a game, but he shot from 3 40%. And last year he shot 40%. This year he's shooting 36%. So he's definitely improved his game and stepped up to the occasion when he needed to keep his career alive. And I think he's become a really, really good player just to have on the team.
Yeah. As I said, I also picked Mike Scott. About almost $5 million a year. Next year he'll be making pretty much $5 million on the dot. Definitely worth that sort of money. That's definitely not too much in any stretch of the imagination. And just really good player, and is quite a reliable guy to have on the floor. I know Philly often run him in clutch situations. He's always on the floor because he's a solid shooter.
And the other player I picked was Josh Richardson. I liked this guy on Miami. I thought he was pretty solid. Obviously, he's on a team that has reasonably big name players around him in Simmons, Embiid, Tobias Harris. So he's not going to be one of the first options. He's like a 4th option, but he's averaging almost 14 points a game despite that. As well as 3.5 rebounds and 3 assists. I think he's a really good piece for the 76ers. He's only 26 years old, so he's definitely got the ability to improve. From 3, he's shooting only 32%, which is much lower than his career average. He's at least shot 35% upwards every other year. In his first year, actually, he shot 46% from 3, which is amazing. His first year. So we know he's definitely got that ability, but he's been a reliable scorer, averaging upwards of 13 points a game for the last 3 years, which is good. And what's he on contract-wise? He is on
10 mil.
10 mil. So I think that's, as a fourth option as well, I think that's a pretty solid contract to have there. For the current champions, the Toronto Raptors, I have picked Serge Ibaka. This guy, I feel like people started to forget about how good he is as a player. He's not going to be an all-star, but he's a very solid player. He's averaging 16 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists this year. His shot blocking has gone down, but I think this guy, in my opinion, obviously besides Kawhi, won them the championship last year.
Yeah. Him and Fred VanVleet.
Fred VanVleet was also very solid. But Serge was very reliable in that final series, and I think that is a testament to how good he is. If you can step up, play your best basketball that I've seen him play ever in a final series, I think that is very underrated to do. So yeah, and also his 3-point percentage has steadily increased across his career. He's shooting just under 40% from 3.
Yeah.
So very, very solid.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, good pick. So I chose OG Anunoby, or however you say his name. First thing is this guy has so much upside. He's 22, and he's making 2.2 mil. I believe he was one of the pieces that the Clippers wanted, or whoever was trying to trade for Kawhi. I think it was it must not have been the Clippers. I think it was the Lakers, and they wanted him in it. I believe I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, I mean, averages has jumped from last year averaging 7 points a game to this year almost averaging 11, so quite a big jump on the average there. Almost 2 assists a game, 5.5 boards a game. Has sort of taken a much bigger role, so his minutes have jumped up by about 10 minutes, and he's improved in those minutes and has made them effective. So yeah.
So now we get to the last team, my team, the Washington Wizards. I have actually picked 2 players, but the first player is Bradley Beal, funnily enough. I think everyone kind of knows why he's underrated, averaging 30 points a game, 4 rebounds and 6 assists, and wasn't an all-star. Might be the greatest all-star snub of all time.
He'd be up there with Dame a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
We used to do like the same numbers and like pretty much the exact same thing.
Could never get into it though, yeah. But I think Beal has improved most since John Wall has been out. When John Wall was playing, he was a good player, but he was half as good as he is now. He was mostly as a jump shooter. Now he's a guy that can not only shoot jumpers, but drives and finishes consistently at the rim. His passing ability has improved immensely. He's shooting... So on 30 points a game, he is shooting 35% from 3. And I think post All-Star break, after he got snubbed, he was shooting like 45% from 3.
Yeah,
he just couldn't miss, I remember. He was averaging like 50 points a game since the All-Star break. He had a bad start shooting-wise to the year. He was still scoring a lot because he took so many shots. But yeah, that's my pick, yeah.
I definitely contemplated Beal, but I couldn't overlook Davis Bertans.
Fair.
If you want a shooter, look no further. Guy shoots about over 40%. I didn't realise that he jumped from 8 points last year to now 15.5 points this season. It doesn't surprise us as much because, seeing some of him, seeing him play in Washington, you've seen him grow a lot. He gets a lot better looks than he did in San Antonio. Obviously, his biggest flaw is his defense. He doesn't really defend at all, which is unfortunate. But still gets you 4.5 boards, almost 2 assists a game. With that scoring, he can get hot. When he gets hot, he's not missing. A really big asset for 7 mil, but a big asset for the Wizards because he's really good down the stretch as well. So,
and my second pick was Thomas Bryant. This guy showed a lot of an improve. I mean, this guy, you remember as well, he was the 42nd overall pick in the draft. He was traded to the Lakers, who waived him, and we picked him up. And last year he averaged 10 points, 6 rebounds, and his shooting has also improved a lot. He shot 33% from 3 last year. This year he's shooting 40%. He's been injured a fair bit this year, which didn't help him. But he's averaging 12 points, almost 7 rebounds. So
only 8 mil.
Yeah, for sure. And that was a new deal we gave him this off-season. So I really like Thomas Bryant. So those are our picks for the Eastern Conference teams. You can, of course, leave your thoughts down in the comments below. We hope you enjoyed. If you did, give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more content, and we'll see you guys in the next one.